I'm curious what your opinion is of the Jamal Murray situation. We mentioned Jimmy guarding him in game two. Within that, one of my favorite Spolstra comments, again, part of how I do appreciate how he will pull the curtain back on his process and tell you his thinking. And he said during his post-game press conference, and I'm paraphrasing, that he had not in game one simply had the foresight to understand why Kevin Love needed to be in the starting lineup. And that Jimmy didn't, there were plenty of possessions defensively where I remember thinking to myself, and I got the old binoculars out for playoff basketball just to make sure I get an even closer look. Like Jimmy made a handful of business decisions defensively during that game. I'm not trying to say that Jimmy was, Michael Jordan in his prime defensively in that game, but he's still Jimmy Butler, and he's going to make life tougher on Jamal Murray. And again, Jamal struggled until late. He almost pulled that thing off, a couple late threes, did his thing. But within that, did you happen to see the Draymond Green, Steve Kerr perspective talking about Jamal after game two? Did this cross your desk at all?
I saw some of the clips. I didn't see him talk about Jamal. No.
It's real simple, but the perspective I thought was great. And to see, championship people like Steve Kerr, Draymond Green talking about it was really fascinating. On Draymond's pod, they talked about the idea, and Steve in particular, that you could tell that the Heat, in their coaches meetings and the team meetings, that it was almost as if they said, wait a minute now, Jokic, clearly the best player on the Nuggets, probably best player in the entire NBA, but Jamal Murray might be the head of the snake. And if we can cut that head off, then we might have something in this series. Do you feel like what they did with Jamal is sustainable? Because as great as Joker is, he had 4 assists, which is a little misleading. Some of that stuff I think is variance and guys missing open looks. But 4 assists for Joker is not their formula for success. But on top of that, just Jamal has been fantastic for damn near this entire playoff run. And if they find a way to slow him down, I think Denver's going to struggle.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head saying I think a big adjustment for Miami was shifting Jimmy Butler over to him, just putting more of a physical presence on him, not allowing him to kind of bully guys the way Jamal can at times when you put like a Gabe Vincent or maybe even Caleb Martin at times on him. I think he can kind of outmuscle those guys. He can't do that with Jimmy Butler. I think we don't talk enough when we get to this stage of how beneficial it can be where you can allow your stars to guard other stars, because I can tell you one thing a ref won't do is call a bunch of fouls on Jimmy Butler when he's guarding Jamal Murray, because they want to see those matchups as much as we do. But as if they would, even if they won't say it. So when your star is guarding another star, your star can get away with a lot defensively. And I think Jimmy, you saw him kind of putting his body on Jamal a little bit, making it tougher on him. But the thing with Jamal, and I think this could be a good thing and a bad thing at times. I think he's just a tough shot taker and a tough shot maker. And I think with him, you mentioned it. If he hits that step back three at the end of the game, we're talking about how great Jamal is. How he came up in the clutch, how he stepped up in the moment, and he ended up missing it. So now he didn't have as great of a game. Jimmy Butler had him on lock. What I mean? I think that's just the way the narrative goes in the finals and how easily you can shift from one way or the other. And I think for him with Jamal, he just got to remain confident. He's got to continue to take the shots he takes. And I think playing next to Jokic, it allows him to get good looks consistently, and he can kind of play in space a little bit more than some of these other great guards. But for him, I think he's got to continue to do what he's done as far as back-to-back games with 10 assists. And I think as long as he's getting off the ball, he's keeping his teammates involved, even if Michael Porter Jr., Kentavious Caldwell Pope, Aaron Gordon, some of these guys aren't shooting the ball as well. I think he's doing a good job at keeping everybody involved, not just jacking up 25, 30 shots when he felt his team slipping away. And I think as long as he's playing that way, the offense will kind of figure itself out. It has been surprising to see how much Michael Porter Jr. just hasn't shot the ball very well, because we know he's one of the top tier shooters in this league. And I think it's going to be interesting because we saw, especially in game two, Christian Braun and Bruce Brown just flat out play better than the starting wings for Denver. And I wonder if that continues, how much Michael Malone just kind of says, you know what, I'm just going to leave Bruce Brown out there. I'm going to just leave Christian Brown out there instead of going back to our starters. But for Jamal, I think he's a guy, we know he takes on the challenge. I think he's going to feel some type of way of missing that potential game time 3-pointer at the end. So I'm expecting him to come out firing in game 3, and I'm expecting Jimmy Butler to be on him again. But like I said, I just want to see him continue to just make good decisions with the ball, and I think that'll end up paying off for him in the end.